Hello, Sam here from the League One Lowdown Preview Show. Thank you to everyone who subscribed over the past week. We've gone up over 120 new people who have subscribed to the channel, so thank you very much. We're still at 78% of you who watch our podcasts and transfer episodes that aren't subscribed, so if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, that would mean a great deal to all four of us. Hello and welcome to the League One Lowdown Preview Show. My name is Sam, and as always on these preview shows, I am joined by my good friend and Lincoln chum, Mr. Callum Davis. Hello, Callum.
Why you don't need to remind me of the team that I support at the moment. We're well aware of the situation. Picked up recently, but you don't need to remind me that I'm your Lincoln chum. I'd rather. Can I just be your chum at this point?
I can call you the Burton chum if you would like.
Well, there is a job going. I think the head of comms going at Burton Albion. If you want to join their social media team, so I did think about that job and then remembered if they did any sort of research on me, I would not get that job. So there you go.
You also wouldn't get a job at Mansfield Town at the moment.
No, well, luckily I'm not going for either of them at the moment.
Well, we've got a big talking point, obviously, on this week's show. As of the time of recording, which is 4:20 on the 22nd of January. This morning, Ian Evatt was, I say, relieved of his duties. It says mutual consent, sacked from his duties at Bolton Wanderers after, how can we put this, a very disappointing first half of the season and some pretty contentious words that he, I don't know if you saw what he did to his fans at the weekend where he stormed off down the tunnel.
Well, it's one of them that the atmosphere around the club has not been great recently. I think that's fair to say. There's been a lot of frustration, hasn't there? But it kind of just feels like, I mean, we speculated that it'd be the end of the season. I've said that it should have been the end of the season because who knows who they're going to get in. There are some candidates out there which we'll get on to. But it's clearly not been the season that Bolton would have expected. As we've said on numerous occasions, for us growing up, they're a Barclays side. There's so many players that the Barclays era, streets will not forget. There's a JJ Okocha, Nigel Reo-Coker played for them at one point. Was it Jaskalainen as well?
Yeah.
The players that the streets will not forget. Obviously, we know what issues they've had, and it kind of feels like Ian Evatt has got there. And you get these types of managers; they never set out that way, but like Ian Evatt seems to be that manager that can get your side as a struggling League One, League Two side. Well, I say struggling League Two side, but from a League Two side to a contender in League One. And Ian Evatt is a great manager, and whether he can make that next step up, we'll have to wait and see. But the fact that he's no longer at Bolton shouldn't class against him. I think he's a great manager, and he has done incredibly well there. He's won silverware, which we definitely shouldn't forget. So it's one of them that it does, and we had speculated at the start of the year that maybe they just needed some fresh ideas. And it's 5 years, isn't it? He's been at the club nearly, so. Yeah, it does feel about right now. Obviously, the results over last week haven't helped. I think it's fair to say, but
no, it also kind of went a bit stale. It seems, didn't it? In the end, nearly 4.5 years at a football club by today's standards is like Sir Alex Ferguson tenure length. Like managers tend not to get more than 18 months before they're kicked out the door. When he first started at Bolton, it was like a 4-3-3 sort of shape. But the last sort of two seasons has been his back. I call it a back three. It's a 3-1-4-2 sort of system. Teams eventually just kind of worked it out, and he refused to adapt. Him being in the media the past couple of days for non-footballing reasons probably hasn't helped. Telling his fans to F off probably didn't help on Saturday after a defeat. He then got a bit argy-bargy with Charlton's captain after a late defeat last night as well, which again probably didn't help the situation. By all accounts, losing in the last minute with a draw would have probably been a decent result because Charlton aren't a bad side. If we're going off like expected points, which is going to be a theme for me this week, the expected points table, Bolton would be 5th with 42 points from their 26 games. So, I mean, they've conceded 12.3 more goals than their expected goals conceded, which is only worsened by Cambridge United with 12.6. So you can see where the problems lie for Bolton. Obviously, they go on.
Yeah, we know managers, like, it's one of them. It's the players that he surrounds himself with as well. We know managers aren't, with the new systems of management and directors of football and chairman and people like the chairmans are the people that make the signings. You very rarely get managers that make signings. But anyway, at the end of the day, you'd imagine Evatt would have had a say in the players that he wants.
100%.
Signing those clinical players, okay, heads can look elsewhere, but also they've got to look at the person who will put pen to paper in Evatt on those signings. I was just looking through the games he's played this year, like just since January 1st. Defeat to Mansfield Town, that's a game. No disrespect. I know I've had my grievances with Mansfield Town fans, but if you're a Bolton Wanderers, you want to be winning that game. Against Exeter, okay, they got that positive result, but it took an 88th and a 91st minute goal to get a win against Exeter away, which again, fair result. But then a 3-1 defeat to Rotherham, who we know have been struggling this season. Yes, they're picked up of late, but it's been a really underwhelming season as far as they're concerned. They beat Lincoln City in the EFL Trophy, which, yes, it's a win in a trophy and one step closer to Wembley, but Lincoln haven't been setting the world alight recently, and they didn't exactly run Lincoln off the park that night, from what I remember. 2-2 against Cambridge, needing a 90th minute own goal is almost unforgivable against the Cambridge side, which we'll touch on later, but are doomed for relegation at this point. And then, obviously, as you say, that defeat to Charlton, it's frustrating because we know what Ian Evatt's sides can do, but it does just feel like they've ran out of ideas, and that's what's cost him in the end.
Yeah, if we go through some of their signings from the summer, they bought Luke Southwood, who's been battling with Nathan Baxter for the number 1 position in goal. Injuries haven't helped with Nathan Baxter going out for a time and Southwood coming in, and then nobody's ever really cemented that number 1. Chris Farino from Wycombe, who I was quite excited for in the summer, but he has only played 2 games this season. Jordi Asaya-Tutu, obviously the famous Aaron Morley transfer, went on loan to Wycombe, did exceptionally well being recalled. Jay Matete's come in, Kalady Lolos has come in and not done much. They got the Hungarian wing-back who's been quite decent, and then they obviously got McAtee back. But if you're looking at the Bolton squad now, obviously they were renowned for scoring goals last season. Obviously losing Dion Charles, 20-odd goals last year. I think he had 10 or so this year. They've probably, in my opinion, now only got 1 natural striker in Victor Adebojo, and he's only got 3 goals this season. Aaron Collins and John McAtee, while they're very good, they are better with a partner. So I think Bolton have to get someone in quickly, because otherwise they've got 1 natural, in my opinion, number 9 to the end of the season.
I suppose that leaves us on to the next point quite nicely, actually. Who do we think is right to come into the team? We know there's a couple of names that are being rumoured. Obviously, Schumacher is one of them. A couple of other names. Jamie went very. We were talking in the group. Jamie went very rogue, and I don't often laugh at Jamie, but I think I had to with this one. With Rob Elliott, I can't see that one personally, because who goes from Gateshead to Crawley to Bolton? It's not a very well worn path, is it?
No, he quickly corrected himself, didn't he? And he meant Rob Edwards.
Oh dear, I must have missed that bit. But maybe fair enough. Rob Elliott would have been interesting though.
Yeah, so if we're going off the favourites at the moment, Stephen Schumacher would probably be my number 1 pick.
Yeah.
And he is the favourite. Sam Allardyce is second favourite. Could you imagine Big Sam and Big Steve in League One?
I would love it personally. I mean that we have to be careful with odds because they often what's it called? They often go with the big names because people want to see it, and then you'll get people betting on it, and it's kind of like a money maker, isn't it? But still, I think that'd be hilarious if we're honest.
You've got Ryan Lowe, Des Buckingham are both out of work. They could go a bit roguer, I suppose, and somebody like, I wouldn't say rogue, he's done an excellent job where he is, Dave Challoner at Stockport, if they wanted to get a manager in work. Obviously, Richie Wellens is born in the region of Manchester. He has moved his whole family down the south, though, so that wouldn't really make sense for him now, but it would bring a complete contrasting style of football to Bolton. Other names on there, Wayne Rooney, that would be hilarious. Bolton in League Two.
Brilliant. Please make that happen.
And then you got Neil Harris and Gary O'Neill. I can't see either of them happening. I personally think it's between Stephen Schumacher and Ryan Lowe.
There's two. I'm just looking on the odds list. There's one that's kind of very. I mean, I've not heard of him before, so I don't know if there's anything in terms of connection here. But Klaus Dieter Wollitz, he's currently 8-1. I wonder, managed at Magdeburg recently. So whether there's some sort of connection there, it seems very left wing, left field appointment. And then Liam Richardson, who managed Rotherham obviously last year in the Championship, so we know how that ended. But he's not been in a job since. Perhaps that could be a way back in for Liam Richards as well. Obviously managed at a Championship level before, so perhaps a name that Bolton would be interested in. For me, it's between Stephen Schumacher, like you say, and Des Buckingham. I quite like the shot. I like the shot of Des Buckingham. You know, he did it with Oxford United, a team you'd imagine with less resources than Bolton. So that's where I kind of see them going. Des Buckingham would be a great appointment for Bolton.
Yeah, and with Des Buckingham's utilisation of the wide areas and the quality Bolton have with their wing-backs, it would probably be a match made in heaven, that sort of move. Obviously, he out-tacticked Ian Evatt in the final last year as well. So yeah,
football's full of these poetic full circles, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they're the obvious three as well, aren't they? Des Buckingham, Ryan Lowe, and Stephen Schumacher. You've got three brilliant managers for League One who are all out of work. Two of them are based in the north as well, so location won't be an issue for them. Stephen Schumacher's obviously won promotion with Plymouth. Ryan Lowe got promoted from League Two, I believe, with Plymouth. I don't think he ever finished the job in League One. And then you got Des Buckingham, obviously got promoted with Oxford. So you've got promotion-winning experience there as well. And then we may as well touch on Bolton's game ahead this weekend first off, while we're on the subject of Bolton. They are away at Huddersfield Town, who have the fourth best home record with 8 wins, 3 draws and 2 losses. And Bolton's away form is 5 wins, 2 draws and 5 losses. So you can't really see a draw in this one.
No, it does feel like these. I mean, to me, Huddersfield, this is theirs to lose completely. I think Bolton. I'm not sure who's going to be in charge this weekend, but they've got it. They must have someone in mind, you'd imagine, because it's a big game towards the top of the table. I was just looking at just on the thing, academy coaches Julian Darby, Andy Taylor, and Andrew Toot will take interim charge of the first team. So 3 managers for the game. I'm not sure when the last time that was done. They'll be in charge until a full-time manager is appointed. So the thing is, it's been one of those. It's been such a long-running saga for Bolton. You'd imagine they'd have someone in mind to appoint pretty much straight away, but it doesn't seem like that if they've had to appoint 3 people in charge. But anyway, this game you can't see a draw. I don't want to say you can see a Bolton win, but their away form is nothing spectacular. It's only the 11th best. Huddersfield's home form are decent. I can just see a Huddersfield win 2-0 probably. Nothing too spectacular, but again, nothing. I don't think it'll be a remarkable game. It has the ingredients to be a remarkable game, but I don't think it will be.
Yeah, I think it's also important to note of Huddersfield. I think they're unbeaten in 15. I'm just going off their last 10. They've won 6, drawn 4, scored 16, conceded 6, which puts them third in the form table for the last 10 behind Leyton Orient and Birmingham. I mean, Huddersfield, exceptional, I think, is a way I would put them at the moment. They are very quietly going under the radar, shall we say. There's all this noise over Wrexham. There's all this noise over Birmingham, and rightly so. And there's all the noise about Wycombe, because obviously they've lost their manager and brought a whole heap of new players in, which will be on tomorrow's transfer show. So you could say it's a bit of a wild card, Huddersfield, for promotion. Obviously, the signings we mentioned last week of Dion Charles and Joe Taylor are exceptional for League One level. Whether they're good enough for the Championship's another story. But if they get you out of League One, you get that money back. It gets you the money back. So I will go with a 2-1 to Huddersfield victory in this one.
We'll see how it goes. I just think. I mean, look at where Huddersfield are in the league. They've got a game in hand on Wycombe and Wrexham. They win that. Of course, it's always better to have points on the board rather than games in hand. But you'd imagine where Huddersfield are in the league. I'm not sure who the game in hand is against. But they'd go up to third. They'd overtake Wycombe on goal difference, and then they're only 3 points away from Wycombe, who aren't stuttering, but not showing the same kind of ruthlessness as they did. Should say, though, in their last 5, Huddersfield unbeaten, but they are 8th in the form table if you look at the last 5. So, again, nothing... It's one of them that they're unbeaten, sure, but they're drawing, which is a bit of an issue for them. So you'd hope that, scored on his debut last time, Joe Taylor, but you'd think that when he gets firing on all 100 cylinders like he did at Lincoln, it'll be a bit of a menace. And Dion Charles as well, you'd imagine, will get a few goals, and that's what they're going to hope will get them promoted.
Oh, yes. And I've missed our famous prediction league, Callum, off at the start. I'm so miserable with my score again this week. I've just completely ignored it. So the people who love our predictions league, I got 2 points last week because it was terrible. And Callum, you got 4 points. So another really poor week from probably both of us, to be fair.
I did look, and I feel like there was a lot of surprise results that didn't necessarily fit in with the order of the league. So I think we kind of got tripped up there.
Yeah, so you got 4 correct outcomes. I got 2, which leaves the scores you now 13 points clear. So it's looking ever so likely that I'm going to have to buy a Lincoln City shirt at the end of the season and wear it for
Do you know what? You're going to have to buy the all black one as well, because as a Lincoln fan, it is terrible. That all black kit is terrible. So you will be wearing that.
Marvellous. Okay, so we may as well talk about a game that is probably on many people, League One fans' lips, and probably the talk of America at the moment, most probably, is Wrexham versus Birmingham.
I don't know what else they've got going on over there in America. I've not heard much about it recently. Not that this is a political podcast, but I'm sure Wrexham against Birmingham will top the agenda.
The sporting agenda, shall we say then?
Yes.
Birmingham managed to win the reverse fixture 3-1, but Wrexham's home form is to a T. 12 wins, 2 draws, 0 defeats at home. That is one hell of a home record. For Birmingham City, they're just as good away from home. And they, to be fair, Birmingham have been excellent all season, bar 1 or 2 results. Most informed team in the league in the last 10 are Birmingham City with 8 wins, 2 defeats, and only the 2 goals conceded as well. But they're still, weirdly, not top of the clean sheets table. They sit in, yes, they've played 2 games less than Wrexham. They sit on 11 at the moment. 3 teams tied on 13. Birmingham have the least goals conceded per match, so technically you could say they've got the best defence in the league, but they're not in the top 5 for expected goals. At Birmingham, they sit in 7th place behind Barnsley, Bolton, Wycombe, Huddersfield, Peterborough, and Stockport County. I think this is a pretty decent game to have, Sky. I don't know why they put it on a Thursday, but it should be a pretty tasty fixture.
I'm actually looking forward to this one. Yeah, it's... you wonder whether these are the 2 sides that will go up anyway automatically. It doesn't so much matter in League One, because obviously there's 2 automatics, I suppose, like the National League, where there's only 1. But you wonder whether these are the 2 sides that will go automatically. But again, should one of these sides slip up, I'd probably ear this more towards the Wrexham side of things. Should Wrexham slip up, the chance that they'll have to go through the playoffs does multiply. You'd think Birmingham, with their 2 games in hand on most teams in the league, I think they're pretty much, I don't want to say they're away now because they're only 2 points ahead of Wycombe, but those 2 points can very quickly become 8 points, and Birmingham are well and truly gone. But for Wrexham, I think this game's more important for Wrexham. Win this game and they're all of a sudden back to within a win of Birmingham City. Lose this game and that becomes a lot tougher. So for Wrexham, I think this game is hugely important, and I think it's one of them. They've got such a strong home contingent as well. I think that's what makes it special for them. They've got such a good, strong atmosphere at the racecourse, which is huge for them as well. So I think as much as I think Birmingham are pretty much unbeatable at the moment, I kind of see this as the game where Wrexham, I'm edging towards like a high scoring draw, kind of a 2-2 or 3-3. I think this game's got action in it. I'm going to go 2-2, I think.
2-2? Okay, I'm going to go for a Birmingham City win. Neither team do concede many. They've only conceded 37 goals between them, which, to put it into perspective, let's pick a team. Bristol Rovers have conceded 39 on their own. So the Reading have conceded 36, and they're in 7th place. So they've very, very nearly combined conceded the same as Reading. They've also, if you combine them, conceded less than Bolton still as well.
Yeah,
that's how impressive they've both been defensively. We know Phil Parkinson as a manager is renowned for his defensive structure, but I think it'll be Wrexham's first defeat of the season, and I will back Birmingham 2-1.
So first defeat at home. They have lost.
First defeat at home. Sorry, yes.
They lost last time out.
They've lost 2 of their last 3 actually. They've lost to Barnsley and Shrewsbury, both away from home though.
It does feel like a very Wrexham thing though to lose to Shrewsbury and then beat Birmingham. But anyway,
and then if they do beat them, it'll be all over their documentary. You
can imagine. So
moving on to a team that is now stranded at the bottom of League One, Cambridge United. Got a draw last time out, but that wasn't enough as Burton Albion managed to win midweek. So well done to them. I'm sure they're going to probably do what they do every single bloody year now and manage to stay up. And then we can have our yearly conversation about Burton doing good recruitment and then backing them to do well, and they never do. Against I'd say a rejuvenated Mansfield side, 3 wins in their last 5, sitting in 11th place. Pretty happy with probably the way their season's gone. 4 points off the playoffs. Pretty congested, I'd say, from 5th downwards now. We've got a little pack we've got 42 points for 5th place Barnsley, and I'd theoretically say you go down to 15th place Blackpool with 31, who probably have a realistic chance of getting in. Mansfield's away from
a good form, yeah. All it takes is a couple of games and you're there.
Indeed. Mansfield's away form is the 5th best, 6 wins, 1 draw, 5 losses, and Cambridge's home form is 2nd worst with 3 wins, 3 draws, and 6 losses.
Yeah, Cambridge just... I don't want to say it's kind of different to Burton in the fact that you can kind of, in the past couple of games, there's been hope for Burton. I touched on that 2-2 against Peterborough. There was hope for them in that one. And obviously beating Wigan in midweek was huge for Burton Albion. But with Cambridge, you just... I don't see anything about them. I know that sounds really harsh, and obviously we know that they drew 2-2 last time out with Bolton, but I just don't see any... It's not like Burton where they get you excited. Cambridge, you just think, at least this is from an outsider's perspective, you just think, where's their ideas coming from? Their home form is nothing to write home about at all. Well, it's definitely nothing to write home about, considering how poor it's been. A Mansfield away form is relatively decent. For me, this game only goes one way. It's a Mansfield win. It's just what's the scoreline? I go 2-0. I don't see Cambridge being very exciting.
Yeah, I've gone for a Mansfield win. I think the annoying thing for Cambridge fans at the moment is the only signing they've bought is Marco Morosi in goalkeeper after Diego Reyes was recalled from his loan. You put that into perspective for Mansfield. I don't think Mansfield have made many signings. In fact, they've only made the one. I'm looking at my little document I have here. They've got Matthew Craig in on loan from Tottenham, a holding midfielder, but we saw him at Stevenage, I think it was last year, and he was exceptional. So it's a decent signing. It's probably the only position they probably needed, to be honest, Mansfield.
Yeah.
We've covered Huddersfield and Bolton, so moving on to be fair, a Shrewsbury Town team who Gareth Ainsworth has got them a bit rocking and rolling now. Against a Charlton, they travelled to London for Charlton, who themselves have found a little bit of form in their last 5, 3 wins, 1 draw and 1 defeat, getting an extremely late winner in the north against Bolton on Tuesday.
Yeah, Charlton, they're just one of them that they're kind of like, we use the phrase sleepwalking a lot. They're kind of sleepwalking up the table in bits and bobs, and then as soon as you start thinking, oh, Charlton are doing all right, they just kind of fall back asleep for a bit and then slowly get back up and start sleepwalking up the table and then fall asleep again. It's kind of like the story of their season. Like, even the last 5 games kind of tell that picture: win, draw, loss, win. So it's like they won 2. People started taking notice. They were just like, actually, do you know what? I don't fancy this. and then went back to win it again in the last game against Bolton, which was last night, obviously, and put the final dagger into Ian Evatt's Bolton tenure. But for Shrewsbury, yeah, it's just one of them. It's, can I see them getting 6 points on the likes of Northampton and Peterborough and Bristol Rovers through the rest of the season? To be fair, I probably can. It's just whether they actually do. It's one of them. You can theorise it, but it's that potentially. It's whether they can deliver on that. For me, I kind of see this one ending 1-1. I don't really see it as a huge game for either side. It's kind of one of them that I think will get written off in the mid-season dullness that we're probably in for until the last 10 games of the season now.
Now I've got the same. I've got a 1-1 draw. While Shrewsbury's away form is terrible, I think you're starting to see the impact of a Gareth Ainsworth side now. 1 defeat in 5 is nothing to be shabby about, especially when you're at the bottom of the league. If you go off expected points, Shrewsbury should be outside the bottom 4. I know the table's not based on expected points, but it gives you perspective on their performances rather than results. Moving on to a team at the top of the table now is Wycombe versus Kevin Nolan's Northampton. Wycombe, I haven't heard anything about a new manager yet. They're probably taking their time, but what they are doing is signing a whole new squad, it seems. They've bought 2 players from Denmark. They've bought a player from Rangers, and they're in the process of getting James Berry from Chesterfield. So the manager's going to have plenty of resources to go with. Again, if we go off expected points, Wycombe would be second, but only a point clear of Huddersfield, who have played a game less, and 1 point clear of Birmingham, who have played 2 games less. So theoretically, you could class them as 4th. Wycombe's home form is the 5th best, and Northampton's away form is the 17th best. But if we're going off my expected points table again, Northampton are bottom.
It kind of makes you wonder, though, with Wycombe, is I mentioned it with Ian Evatt, who's making these signings, because it sure as heck ain't the manager. Like, you want a manager to be able to have the players that they need to get you out of it. And a bit like Birmingham, okay, we're kind of seeing it come around now, but Birmingham just have good players. Like, Birmingham have great players, and I feel like the tactics are catching up to them now. Whereas I think Wycombe are kind of going for that approach. If they have great players, then maybe they'll sign a manager with tactics. But I don't know. I'm not sure about that. If you're signing so many players for a lot of money, they're kind of banking on getting out of League One, and we know that can end badly. So I'm I don't want to say worried for Wycombe, but I don't want them to go, hope and bust. Northampton, essentially, the thing is, they're 20th, but they're 5 points above the relegation gap, and we kind of said all year they'd be 5 points above it, and I can kind of see the same thing happening. They'll just be always 5 points above, which for Crawley, Shrewsbury, Burton, and Cambridge is a bit tough. But yeah, I can see Wycombe just kind of walking this one 2-0. Again, it's in a couple of years, well, maybe the end of this year and in next year, if they don't get promoted, that's when I'll start to get a bit worried about them and their players and whatnot. But 2-0.
I think Wycombe also have to be careful, unlike the Birminghams, the Wrexhams, who have so much revenue coming in, of the new FFP rules coming in next year. Wycombe don't have the revenue through gates or sponsorship. Like if you look at Birmingham, I'm pretty sure they've got Delta Airlines as one of their main sponsors. So they won't have the revenue that a Birmingham, a Wrexham, a Huddersfield have coming in. So it's important that for Wycombe, really, that they actually do finish the job off. But they're going to have to get a manager in pretty sharpish.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So moving on to two teams trying to revitalise their season. One is currently doing that, is Rotherham. They travel to Burton Albion, who got a win midweek thanks to their new signing, John Daddy Bodvarsson getting the winner. Burton brought Burton off the bottom of the table. 1 defeat in 5, though, now for Burton, which is pretty much the same as Shrewsbury. Can Gary Bouyer do the unthinkable and keep Burton up? And this will be the 3rd successive season that Burton have been in the relegation zone around Christmas time, and they've managed to sneak out of the drop. For Rotherham, undefeated in their last 5, now in 13th place, and you could say they're within 3 wins now of the playoff places. Could Steve Evans do a Steve Evans and get back into the playoff places?
I do, for all the slack that I've given Burton, I've always said that I never wrote them off. I don't think I ever wrote them completely off anyway. I might have said I did, but in my head, I don't think mentally I've never completely written them off. They are 8 points from safety, but again, we always talk about mini runs of form. I'm quite used to it at work at the moment, talking about Boston United in the National League. It's all about just having a run of form, and if you get a good run of form, whether that's just 3 wins in 5. 3 wins in the next 5 games would probably put Burton 21st and within a point of safety.
Yeah.
And at that point, the players start to believe. I mean, the players will already be believing. They just beat Wigan Athletic, who, realistically, I don't want to say Wigan are probably safe, but they're not great. But all it takes is just a bit of confidence at that area of the league. So for Burton, it's a great result and a bit of confidence. Rotherham, I know that they're back in form. Okay, they're unbeaten in the last quite a few couple of games, but I don't know what it is about them. I don't. It's probably because I'm not excited by them still. I'm still not excited. Like when you go to a football match, you want to be excited. You don't want to be, and you want to be excited about teams. And Rotherham United, they're getting the points, but you're not excited to see them climb the table at all. At the moment, I see this one being a bit of a slog completely, but I kind of back Burton, sort of. I'll go 1-1. I think Burton will. It's one of them that I think if Burton, I don't think Burton can win it, but I don't see them losing it. And I think Gary Bowyer will just be like, keep that confidence and get a point at least. So that's what I see happening.
I've gone for a 2-0 Rotherham win, while Rotherham's away form is 18th best. Burton's home form is the worst in the league. So I've gone for Rotherham. Moving on to Stockport versus Crawley, a game I don't actually have much to say on, to be honest. Stockport got their first win in 4 last time out and have the 7th best home form. Crawley just inside the relegation places, but like you say, by 5 points with no win in their last 5 and the 20th best away record.
It's quite funny, isn't it, that Stockport are 6th, their home record's the 7th, Crawley is 21st, their away forms are 20th, so they're basically where they should be. If you look at the form, and I think the scoreline will probably reflect that. 2-0 probably is probably a safe bet.
2-0. Yeah, I've gone for 2-1 to Stockport. Obviously, they've gone for another. So Stockport have kind of had 2 sticky patches kind of this season, and they're still in and around the playoff places. They got rid of their £1 million player Lewis Fiorini on loan a couple of days ago as well to give him some football, as well as Sam Hughes. So I would expect a couple of ins in the last week or so of the window at Stockport. Moving on to Exeter City versus Blackpool. Blackpool winless in their last 5, but drawn their last 4 against an Exeter side who don't really draw any, but are also haven't won in their last 5.
It's a fun game, this one, and by that I mean it's just really, really mid-table. as much as we kind of keep thinking Blackpool will put together a run of form and go up the league because they're called Blackpool, I just don't see it personally. But I think 1-1's probably a fair guess here.
Yeah, I've gone for the same. So it'd be 5 draws in a row for Blackpool. They've obviously had quite a upheaval in this transfer window, especially in the forward areas. They've lost Kyle Joseph to Hull. They've brought in Tom Bloxham from Shrewsbury. Sammy Silvera's coming on loan from Middlesbrough. So they're trying to add more firepower to a squad that, to be fair to it, has firepower, but they're probably trying to look at to get the best out of someone like a Jordan Rhodes, who we know at League One level can score goals. Moving on to Wigan versus Bristol Rovers, a rejuvenated, I think it's fair to say, Bristol Rovers with 2 wins from 2. New manager Inigo Calderon's gone in there. They very, very nearly got a well-earned point against Orient. I think they probably did deserve a point in that game. They went and beat Cambridge and followed that up with a confident 3-1 home win against Barnsley. We know Barnsley are a pretty decent side away from home. But Wigan's home form is actually the 21st best, and Bristol Rovers away form is 19th. Wigan have obviously rejuvenated their squad in the transfer window. I don't know what to do on this one. I think this is probably one of those tricky games to call, just purely because I don't know what to expect.
Well, I don't think anyone knows what to expect, and I just don't think anyone's. I'm not hugely interested in this game either, if I'm honest. I don't think either of the two teams will be hugely interested in this game either, if I'm honest. I just. It kind of feels like one of them goes that could either be 0-0 or 4-4. So I'll go somewhere in the middle and say, 2-2. Why not?
I think I'll put yours in accidentally.
I think you accidentally wrote that in, and I was just like, do you know what? You've given me a valid point there.
I've read your mind.
Just for context, we both have access to a shared sheet what we script these episodes on, and as we go through them, and Sam has written 2-2, and in my mind I was like, do I go 2-2, 3-3, or 3-1 or whatnot? And Sam put 2-2, and I was like, do you know what? I'll go with it. Why not?
This is when it's 3-3.
Yeah.
Moving on to Leyton Orient versus Reading. Orient suffered their first defeat in 14 against Stevenage in the Virtu Motors Trophy. Reading's away form is the 14th best in the league. Orient have probably got their eyes on the tasty cup tie against Manchester City, which could potentially sway in terms of performances, in terms of players don't want to get injured. That's what I personally think. If I was a player, I'd probably think like that. But I'm not a professional footballer, so.
You probably get into the Lincoln City lineup, but anyway, yeah. I can see what you mean, but I don't know if Richie Wellens is the type of manager to kind of allow that. I think he'd give him a right talking to. So I'm probably veering more towards Orient on this one. I'll go 2-1.
2-1. I've gone for 2-0. It's quite a big game for both sides because Reading just sit outside the playoffs on goal difference, but their away form's the 14th best. Orient are 3 points further back, but do have a better goal difference than Reading, and that could put them within touching distance of the playoffs. I think they'll be looking to bounce back. And they're at the end of the day, if you are a professional footballer and you've got Manchester City on the horizon, you're going to want to put in a performance as well. So it can work sort of both ways. So I will back my own team to win 2-1 and continue their exceptional form in the league. Best most form team in the last 5 games, 4 wins and 1 draw. Moving on to your team, Lincoln City versus Peterborough, who got their first clean sheet last week at the 23rd time of asking, something like that.
Yeah, and obviously Lincoln finally getting their first win in I think since Christmas, which is incredible. The fact that we've had to wait since Christmas to get a win, and we're only 6 points off the playoffs. Mental. It just kind of shows you how out of form everyone has kind of been this year. For Lincoln, obviously they just signed a new striker in James Collins, which I think is huge. We know what he did for Derby last year. 1 goal every 3 games, which isn't great, but it's more how he'll allow the other strikers around them to develop. We know there's been a lot of talk about Freddie Draper's future. I think Walsall and MK Dons potentially have also been on the horizon for him, but I think Freddie Draper's to me it's a bit of a weird one. If he decides to leave now that we've got James Collins in. It's kind of like a figurehead. There's so much you can learn off a striker like that. And I think he's ready and available to start this weekend. He's not unfit, unlike Sam Clucas, who clearly is not up to fitness. He wasn't even in the matchday squad last week. So, huge. And obviously, James Collins will have the whole week to bed into the system. So I imagine he'll definitely be on the bench, if not starting. I'm thinking they've never been bad on this run of form. They've just never looked like scoring, which is, I suppose, that makes them bad on this run of form. But they've never been great. Like, it's been such a weird run of form. Obviously, Lincoln against Posh, for not so much for Peterborough, but for Lincoln fans, this is probably the closest we get to a derby this year, because we're better than Grimsby, but not as good as Hull. So this is the closest we get to a derby. I kind of back Lincoln. We don't have a great track record against Posh, so I'll go against it. But I'll go 2-0. Collins to get a goal on debut. It's been a while since we've had a debut goal for Lincoln, and by that I mean it was the summer, but it was never mind.
I've gone the other way. I've gone for 2-1 to Peterborough. I know Peterborough's away form is torrid, 22nd best, but I'm going off my expected points table again. Yeah. They're 11th while you're 7th, but Peterborough have conceded 10 more goals than they should have done this season. And you could say the same for Lincoln.
You've got to average 7. Out at some point.
Yeah, and you've conceded 7 more than you're expected to, which actually puts you 7th in the table based on that.
No, I wish.
So I'm going to back Posh. And moving on to the final game of this week's preview show, there will be another, not a preview show, there'll be another set of fixtures next Tuesday, which me and Callum will predict, and that'll go out on our social media, which is at the bottom of the screen if you want to follow us. Barnsley versus Stevenage. Stevenage are the most boring side I've ever watched in the history of football. Barnsley's home form has slowly improved. It's now the 17th best with 4 wins, 5 draws and 4 defeats. It's the type of game Stevenage are going to rock up, make it exceptionally difficult for Barnsley's creative players. And I think it will be. And to put this into perspective, Stevenage has only scored 3 away league goals this season as well. It's bad. I will back Barnsley 2-0.
This, to me, has 0-0 all over it. It just does. I'm going 0-0. Both sides have drawn 5 games, like at home and away. I can just see that being 6. Barnsley have drawn more at home than they have lost or won. Stevenage have drawn more away than they have at home. They've drawn more away than they have won away or lost away. So, 0-0. It's not going to be a memorable one, I don't think.
I think that's the first time ever you've ever backed a 0-0 in nearly a year we've been doing this.
Yeah.
First time for everything.
Yeah, I just don't see it being great.
Well, if you have any predictions, let us know in the comments. And while you're down there, please do consider subscribing to the channel. I will be back probably tomorrow or Friday with a transfer roundup for week 3 in League One ahead of our deadline day live special that will be coming from the Det Network. So if you have enjoyed the podcast, make sure you leave a like and make sure you follow us on your preferred platforms. And thank you everyone for listening. Look after yourself.